Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining Archangel Alts, the most altly arc-y thing on the internet. I'm sure that means something to somebody somewhere. So here we are. Looks like we got sound, looks like we got video, and you can see a very, very, very happy staircase climbing Bitcoin thing going on. So if you're looking for your $3,500 Bitcoin buy-in, not sure it's ever going to happen again. Cannot stress the importance so very, very much that if you're looking to get in, better get in. There is a chance that at some point in time, if this has a bounce and the volume drops and the alts pick up steadily, we could see it drop one last time below 2,800. I don't really see it ever going beyond that as a low. As I'm zooming out further and further, you can see just how far back you have to go before you can see a previous drop, and that is substantial. Take a very different approach to how we look at things here at the Archangel Alts, but since the beginning of Binance, it looks like 2817 was the lowest that it had ever gone. We came a little bit closer. Well, yeah, it's really tough to find an example. Where is that range over here? Nope, that's still very healthy over there. Yeah. So initially, when we saw the Bitcoin crash, Bitcoin Cash hard fork cause this over here, and we basically saw Bitcoin divide in half, which has not happened many times, by the way. You know, the question was whether it was going to bounce here, 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 and it's amazing how everything becomes a death cross and a golden cross, and you know, it's about to hit the 1 year cross, and it's about to hit the 13-month cross, and blah 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 blah. There's really a lot of denial in the chart reading community about what is an accurate reading and what isn't, and the thing is that people have made decisions about what to do based on their own team efforts, internal groups, that, you know, it's whether it be considered anything like insider trading or anything along those lines. You know, I really, personally, I don't care. I don't think that anybody with tens of millions of dollars can be expected to stay out of their own market. And so they will find a way, whether it's direct, like I think it is now, or through buy-in groups like some other countries tend to do. I'm not going to go, you know, through ethnic backgrounds and regions and what kind of manipulation they tend to be experts at. But truly from the inside out, those who are doing some of the same manipulations that the smaller fish in the ocean are doing, but they just happen to have tens of millions of dollars to do it. It's not very unfamiliar, but it is. It's funny how long-term charts can tend to show the averaging of human behavior and psychology, very much the same way that temporary moves are made based on what's happened, you know, in the past day, in the past week, in the past month. So, bottom line, we are headed towards this mirroring. We've been waiting for the comeback. I don't even think making it all the way back to 6K would constitute a true bull run. In the same way that I don't believe that this spike ever constituted a real value of Bitcoin. I think that when it spiked to 20K, it could possibly have been piggybacking on the CBOE and all that stuff, the, you know, ETF related things that were a total bomb. But that's what everybody thought was going to bring, you know, 5 billion people to Bitcoin. Not really an exaggeration. People just don't really understand global economics too well. That's all I'm saying. See, what you got to do is you gotta look for the bigger fish, and the minnows get eaten by the sharks, and the sharks nope. Sharks, the whales, etc., etc., etc. Yeah. The real tangible value is going to come from some kind of median and rate of acceleration, and it goes beyond looking at fractals, looking at the Fibonacci, looking at the retracements, looking at all of the little triangles and all the little butterfly shapes and all these different things that people come up with to make commentary after the fact about what has already taken place. So what I can tell you is that this is a hugely significantly large climb towards getting us back to where the value should have been. And that's kind of my point of this market watch. There are some interesting things going on. Saw Doc suddenly found its feet again. But, once again, this is coming back from something that was pretty detrimental from the previous spikes. And I hope that you're going to understand this. I hope that you can understand that going up 12% after going down negative 27% is not a new high. Okay, so if you subtract, 27 per, if you take 27 minus 12 and then put a negative in front of it, yeah, okay. So fun is working its way back to, before all of this, it was at 97 and had worked its way up to 120, which is a 20% rise, which is really good. It's, especially for the smaller coins, more difficult to rise than it is to go down. Speaking of go and down in the same sentence, this is like our one current frustration. We really need to see go get a chance to continue its newfound spike that it was headed. It was actually headed on that trajectory before the actual spike. But this was Bitcoin going up too quickly, and then there was kind of a settling in. It gained a lot of momentum through here. In fact, I can show you this wasn't just straight up. It was a really good move in there. Oh, where do I have to go to show that? Let's see. Or can I? It may not really fit very well on the screen to see the whole progression. That's pretty good. You can see throughout there, that was pretty much all we needed to see it do. So yeah, this was probably the most important part of it right here. If it wasn't able to get out of those 620s into the 640s and 50s, then I don't think that we would have seen this one. This was kind of a ramping up, but yeah, if this was actually a pump, I remember watching it in sequence with what Bitcoin was doing, and unfortunately this part, this was not something that was mirroring what was happening over here. This is something that was a natural move of volume shifting way too fast. And so you can see here, this does not look like a steady pattern, and that's for a reason. It happened kind of over a natural process. Not a steady pattern at all in the stock RSI. Not at all a steady pattern in the MACD. Not at all a steady pattern in the volume. So these were not pre-configurable, predictable things. But those last two falls actually kind of left us in a worse place than when we started. Which, technically, if you haven't been in on Go at all, is a good starting place, but I wouldn't start at it with that low of volume when its volume was in the 1,000 to 2,000 BTC 24-hour volume range. So Key was starting to make a move into the mid-70s again, and then it got smacked down again. So there's a lot of not very good stuff for the overall market happening by the unnatural rate of pump happening with the coin that is the Bit. Happy to see it show that it's got the strength in it. But I would much rather see Bitcoin go up, even $10 an hour. And just, for every 10 that it gains, maybe it goes down to even 5. But it just continues on that trend. It would not take long for it to be in exactly the same place. And that could only come from a real natural ground level grassroots hit the ground running mass adoption by everybody getting the word out. That mass adoption comes from liquidity. Liquidity comes from trading on a legitimate exchange. We choose Binance. And I'm going to go over the big coins, not Bitcoin, and kind of show where they stand. REQ is still in the game. This is obviously the trend we're looking for, so it's got a ways to go. Raven is getting hurt really bad right now. It was headed in an upward trajectory. And technically, we took an extremely small loss on Raven. We had already cleared all of our Raven, but the system did not update 3 very small positions that we had gone in on. I finally did some analysis and saw that. And I did, several different positions at 333 Raven, 333 Raven, 333 Raven. And they were part of a cluster. We cleared all of that cluster, but it never gave an update on the 3 333s. So they were worth about 130 in Bitcoin world, and I went ahead and sold them off when I saw this climb happening. But that whole process went back to when it was over here. So yeah, it was one of those things where it's like I don't really even consider. I mean, for the record books, we could call it a loss, but the truth of the matter is that we made all of our profit 100% on the cluster, and there was one part of it that was just sitting there that the system had not updated and did not tell us about. So, for every one thing like that, there's 20,000 other things that go right. So not at all something that I'd, call out on Binance as being a bad thing. TNB has been doing remarkable stuff here. Have not taken a single, breath of a break from trying to track this whole thing. We've gotten a little bit of profit out there. That's nice. It's grown another 300 BTC 24-hour volume just in the past 10 minutes. So part of the reason I'm not going to spend a really long time on this because I don't want to miss other opportunities. For our private paid group, I am actually doing like text updates more right now just because things are shifting so quick. I don't think it's worth sacrificing anybody's positions to take too long shifting back and forth between screens when I'm not sure exactly when people are live. So if you at any point in time are in a position where you are waiting for me to do something, you can always post a request for an analysis or, in our private group. Or I'm also willing to schedule going live exactly when people are like, hey, I'm live, jump on. So not at all a problem. Just right now, it's not worth the sacrifice for concentration versus, am I actually doing this for somebody live right now? We'll always go back and analyze, positions later on. That's part of what we're going to be doing is, through the learning process, we're going to point out, not theoretical things and not things that we just showed generally from charts of past experience, but actually going through our own moves and showing exactly what the thinking was behind different things. So BCPT is, to say that it is, plus 3%, just like fuel, that's plus 3% coming back up to the 310, 320, 330 range that it already was before. So there is movement and traction for things like this. Ooh, yeah, I want to get into this. So don't want to lose too much time. Lots of interesting stuff going on there. So ADA was headed to the 2000s and it got kicked down by Bitcoin, unfortunately. Ion was doing rather well and it's got to make up this. And BCD was in the 250s. It's going to have to climb that road again. May not actually get back up there. I'm not really sure. It was in sync with Bitcoin because it's actually shares some of the same characteristics on the network. It's just a hard fork from the network. And it's got an interesting history of its own. CELR is kind of having trouble. It was really showing that its value was somewhere in the 400s, and it's too new and too small to be able to keep up with this movement, unfortunately. Go was really headed for probably hitting 1,000, and it got stomped out in the 800s. Not a very happy thing. EOS, a lot of people are talking up more and more and more again. We'll see how that goes. It's not one of the coins that I try to trade. Ethereum Classic, sometimes I like to try to get in on it, but it's not the right time. I saw some people calling this one earlier, and I was a little bit nervous for them. That ended up being for the right reasons. It was not able to hold this resistance. It went more towards this one, and when people saw it heading in that direction, you can see what happened. So this did coincide with Bitcoin going up, which means that it is in a negative loop. And Ethereum actually went up, overshot Bitcoin a little bit. And honestly, I'm not sure what it's going to do through here. This was very even compared to what Bitcoin just did. Bitcoin has little jaggedy waves going through here. But the crossover is the same. The MACD is the same. The volume is nearly identical. So, it's tracking Bitcoin right now. But it has, in the past, tracked exactly a negative correlation, too. So you really have to be careful there. Either way, I just don't think it's worth the large steps that it's got to do. IOST, unfortunately, once again, is one of the few ones that I actually traded out of it quick enough in the browser, did not trade out of it quick enough in the client. So now I've got to wait for it to do the same thing again, somewhere around 360. So, and that might look pretty high on the cliff right there for now. But observe. Yep, see. So, oh, that's sweet. Okay, so gonna guess back to about 7. Yeah, so about 7 months in is where that was. About 330 was safe. Oh, just going into August, I would say. Yep. So, IOST seems like it's an important project. I'm hoping that it kind of gets its sea legs and starts moving quicker again. Better hit Litecoin here. LTC. So it's a little bit down. It's not quite in perfect sync with Bitcoin. Let's see it at the 1 minute. Yeah, so that's very unusual. It's doing the same pattern, but it's had some of its own sell-off. You got to remember that even though these sync very tight to what the coin of Bitness is doing, the truth of the matter is that their own projects, they are their own projects, and they get their own independent news too, and the larger ones are much more susceptible to the plus and minus on that news than smaller ones. You got to think that people that have, tens of millions of dollars tied up in Ethereum and Litecoin, they're not going to take a lot of risks if they think that negative news is legitimate. Phoenix, keep your eyes on Phoenix. I think that we're going to see another Phoenix rising soon. Of course, we are, I believe, clear of our Phoenix positions in the client. Yeah. But we still have some large ones that we're waiting on in the browser. We set them intentionally longer because they were already early hodls before our launch. And so, it'll be interesting to see where that goes. Very much so. Po. If you are doing like longer term strategies, why like long term strategies? If you're doing longer term strategies, even midterm, between 117 and 123. Hey, you just touch it and it goes to 23. That's cool. No, that's not how it works. Anywhere between 117 and 123, I would say, is a good entry for 2, 3, 4%. If you're looking for that kind of thing. REQ, look once again. Yeah, it's not on a good trajectory, so that's going to take some time, most likely, unless it's in queue to be pumped. Raven, really good new buy-in. I would say more for a medium term, more for a week or 2 week, because there's just no telling whether it's going to have to test this down here. And I'm not in on the Bitcoin pumps that are going on. It's not natural movement, just so you know. You'll see stuff in the news. Supposedly SEC approved something with ETF stuff. I'm not sure if that's accurate or not. Have to look into it. But that's not the reason that this is going on. This is part of a trail of things that are already happening. Now, that's not to say that there isn't a connection between the people that are pumping and ETF stuff. If they already know that certain things are happening and moving in a good direction, they could very much already be kind of kickstarting what will become a true bull process. I do not believe that the real bull starts unless there's natural movement. When this volume slows down, but Bitcoin is still gradually going up, and we see that cross 5,900 into 6,000, then I can believe that that's a real bull run. If it happens just 1 or 2 or 3 days from now, this is not a natural pump. It's not a market-wide pump going on. So you just need to understand that there aren't just suddenly $80-90 million, finding their way magically to the right positions in Bitcoin at the right times. This is an orchestrated effort. Tron, you really got to be careful with anything that Sun touches. Please take my word on that. Doesn't mean that you can't find profit in it. Just don't expect, somebody says, man, Sun just said that Tron's going to be at 1,000. Tron says a lot of things. Mr. Sun says a lot of things. Okay. And XRP, seeing a lot of volatility. This is kind of what I would expect right now. It is not ready for, even 10% market share. A lot of things that they have said. I think that they serve a real purpose on the market, but I think that because they have been standing out as that other thing, they've been able to monopolize that a little bit in 2018. But now that there's serious financial institution infrastructure for transactional resolutions to traditional banking coming in, JPM and all these other things that are going to happen, not sure that they can stand alone on just being that thing. We're the guys that do this thing. I'm not sure that that's going to hold for them. It's possible, and I'm not a pro or anti-Ripple person. People have very strong feelings and opinions about Ripple, and I think that it doesn't really merit the animosity, and it doesn't merit the, oh my gosh, it's going to be the one and only thing that blows up across America and the world. It could very well do so, and it would be proof of their having dug in their heels and doing the right thing for blockchain, but there's no guarantees for that. So market-wide, you can see that there's a lot of pain going on, but there's one thing that stands tall, and that is the unnatural pump that is happening with Bitcoin. So if you are in a negative correlation with Bitcoin, one of the things you could look at, I suppose, would be, is it still here even? May not even still be here. Is it under the alts? I'm really not sure because I don't do this anymore, but if TUSD was still tradable in that direction, let's see. That's all ETH. Yeah, no, I think the only choices that you have in this would be to trade out your Bitcoin to something like USDT or TUSD. So like here, it goes up here and you think that that's the highest it's going to go, then you could cash out to TUSD or USDT. Some people might choose whatever the highest one is at that time. You just got to remember that then you have to decide whether you're going to sell back to Bitcoin or how you're going to handle that. I probably would stick with one that if that's what I had to cash out, that's what I would have to cash out. So yeah, you could do this and then wait. The problem is that, is it going to go down 2%? Is it going to go down 3%? Well, is it worth not being able to do any other trades if you let it sit for 3 or 4%? So, and how long and how many times over? So we're all about being able to turn this stuff over and over and over again. We're trying to set 2% as a daily goal. We have a history of far outperforming that, but the market is just so incredibly shifty. So, unless you're beyond like a 20, 30 Bitcoin threshold, and you're circulating that already very quickly through a very specific list of coins, you have to be really careful. So, hello, IOST is like, I've had a good nap. Time for me to do this. So, you know what, guys? I'm going to check to see if anybody's got questions. Then I'm going to let you go because I should be trading on this. All right, so yeah, that's going to be it. I'm going to go check out this IOST thing that everybody's talking about, or I've been talking about. So what happens with your 10:30? 10:30 p.m. is exactly when the spike is designed to happen. So very, very cool. So that means that there's other spikes on the way because this just happened with TMB and a couple others. So eyes open, folks. If you got questions, I'll answer them. Going to go ahead and end this for now. So for now, Archangel Alts out.